Oak Island. I have news. There's another coin that's been found on Oak Island. They found coins there before. And I'm not trying to belittle what they did, but we do know they're both Spanish coins. I think we can assume that somebody Spanish has been there. So what we know about this place, we know where it is. We know that 6 people have died. We know that allegedly 3 guys discovered it. We know they found some gold chain. They found some parchment. They have found coconut fiber, which is significant. They found metal, bone. They have found coins. They allegedly have found a booby trap. They have found a cipher stone, which they don't know where it is anymore. The Knights Templar may have had some involvement in it. We know we've got a pit down there that has many, many correspondences to the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite and the 7th degree of the York Rite. They found many, many Masonic symbols on the island, including the stone with the letter G. They have drilled down into that, or they've gone down into borehole 10X, and they have found what they think may be some things of significance. They have found a series of triangle made out of rocks that points toward the money pit, and they've got a cove that is man-made. Let's kind of take a look at each of those and figure out what's fact, what's fiction, and what's conjecture. Location, there's no doubt about that. That's a fact. The legend of Oak Island is a legend, so that's pretty much fiction. The history, there's a lot we know about it, a lot we don't know about it. When you put it together, it kind of falls in the conjecture category. The gold chain and parchment aren't exactly fact. The parchment is probably real, they don't know, but there's all kinds of information that leads to the fact that it may have been planted by people who wanted to keep people digging. Kind of conjecture. The coconut fiber, metal, bone, coins, absolute solid fact that they have found those. The booby trap, pretty much conjecture. You know, it's either a booby trap or it's porous stone. But something filled that thing with water, and something filled it with water when they pulled up the alleged cipher stone. But the cipher stone has never been found. I think if they found that, it would really clear a lot of things up. But they've never found it, and they may never find it, and if they do, it would be very significant. The Knights Templar brought the treasure to the island. There's not a lot of fact behind that. It might fall into the conjecture category. Now, the fact that the pit parallels the Masonic degrees is true. There's no doubt about that. The stuff behind those facts is a lot of conjecture. That, you know, the flagstones were there, or the flood is parallel to Noah's flood, but it indeed parallels the Masonic degrees. We know for sure there's a lot of Masonic symbolism on the island. The axe, the treasure chest, and the body that they think they found in borehole 10X, they need to get down there again. On the show this past summer, they sent a camera down to look at that stuff, and the camera failed while it was down there. And of course they're playing it up as the curse of Oak Island and all that, but they need to get back down there with that camera. The markers that are pointers to the money pit, there are people who think the stone triangle was faked at a later date, but there is no doubt that those 3 or 4 or however many there are stones that point directly to it are down there pointing toward the money pit. The man-made cove is absolute fact. It's a man-made cove. So we've got some facts about the place, and still a lot of questions to be answered. Another question, is there really a treasure on Oak Island? You got to say, define treasure. Because look at what they found for sure. They found those coins and all the Masonic artifacts. Well, in a way, that's treasure. It's very important stuff. It may not be worth a fortune, but it kind of qualifies as treasure. But the real question is there significant treasure down there? Are we going to find the Ark of the Covenant? This is not my chart. It's one I found of a number of researchers and just saying where they think the treasure is on the island. They think it's on the island, or they think it's near the island, or they think it's right in the money pit or someplace close to it, significantly. And there are a lot of researchers. You know, some of them say several, not just one name. Not a single one of them is saying there's no treasure there. But there are people who say that. So we've established the fact that several researchers are just certain there's a treasure there. One researcher I found thinks that the thing is a tomb. And he kind of points to that alleged dead body they have found down there. One researcher thinks it's a sinkhole. And then there are three researchers, independently, and now they've kind of gotten together, think that Oak Island is nothing more than a Masonic hoax. Here's what they base that on. The kingpin, no pun intended, is this Dennis King. He is a Masonic brother, and he has studied this place, and his theory goes something like this. Back in the 19th century and prior, it was a common scam to try to get people to think you had found treasure, convince them however you could, and then get them to invest in your scheme, and then skip town. Joseph Smith, who founded the Mormons, was accused of doing this at one time. So he doesn't think the Masons did that, but he thinks that once it was started, the Masons came along and they took a look at that hole and they kept adding to it. He said, yeah, they found the hole, and then in 1863, they sort of slipped in the coins that were Masonic jewels. And then next year, they started talking about the flagstones. And he, by the way, he has a lot of newspaper articles and things to back him up. And each of these things, he thinks they just brought in, sort of snuck in the back door, including that stone triangle, which is why we can't say it's totally effective. And said, you know, they kept bringing in stuff that made it look more Masonic and more like the 7th and 13th degrees. That's where that theory comes from. So if we add that Masonic hoax thing down there, it's more or less conjecture. It's just another wrinkle in this whole thing. So after 220 years of this hole, we have found a few tantalizing artifacts. We have got countless theories as to what might be going on there. And we got a lot of questions. And we still don't know what's going on that island. But we probably know one thing. Freemasons, one way or another, have been involved in this thing. And when they find something on that island, if they do, it'll be interesting to see if it's got some real Masonic connections. But you look at all of the stuff on the island, and the Masons have definitely played a part. Allegedly. That's pretty much it, guys. If you'd like to read a little bit about this, as I mentioned, I write for the Midnight Freemasons blog. Brother Greg Knott also does. It's kind of based here in Illinois, isn't it? If you Google Midnight Freemason Oak Island, there's a little bit more there. I'll open it up to questions if you've got them. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Were people living on that island?
Not at the time this all started. There are now people living on the island. Dan Blankenship is one of them. Fred Nolan is the name of another resident on the island. They don't like each other. And now those brothers that are actually excavating the island right now have bought part of the island. I don't think they really live there, but they own part of the island. If you went up there today, you can't go on the island except on special days when they have tours. Yes, sir.
May I add a comment?
Sure.
I live in New Mexico, and I was in Roswell when this thing allegedly happened there. Nobody in the town ever talks about it or knew anything about it at that time. And if you go to Roswell, I've been there recently, there are a lot of aliens there, and some of them are actually there legally. And there is among the town fathers and the merchants and what have you, a cottage industry of making up stuff about that event back there, the Roswell event. And it seems to help the tourist trade a lot.
It does.
So I just thought I'd throw that out.
Well, I think it applies. You know, one thing that has gotten to me, they really haven't made a cottage industry of this up there, but I think they would like to. I seriously thought about going to Oak Island last summer before I did all this research. And they charge 10 Canadian dollars for that tour. So I realized I was going to probably spend about 2,000 bucks to get up there and 10 bucks for the tour. Up until just, I think it was 2012, the Canadian island controlled digging on this island, and they just wouldn't let you do it. You had to jump through hoops to get the digging permit. Now they've loosened up on that, and of course these brothers have gone up there to do it. But they haven't made that cottage industry out of it, and maybe they should. Anybody else? We've been very gracious. Thank you very much. I hope you got something out of it.